Yes, please.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I see a record button. Is that you?
I just started recording. Yes.
Okay, okay, great.
That's great. Okay, perfect.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So we will start with an introduction, some level setting, take you through my experiences out in Canada, and then we'll dive into the nuances about licensing and registering as an interior designer in Canada. And time permitting, I'd also like to just briefly touch upon some job search and networking tips for you all. And if we have 15 minutes, I would like to throw it out for question and answers to the audience out there. So I believe Lulua will help me, ensure that I'm on time. So let's begin.
Hope
Oh,
so.
so this is just a disclaimer. Just sharing that, whatever I've shared out here is kind of a curation of the things that I've experienced and that I found publicly available on the net. However, I would advise that you do your due diligence and research in, getting in touch with the official organizations yourself and figuring out about the latest rules and regulations. As walk you through the presentation, you'll see certain things have changed since I have become a licensed designer. So please do your due diligence. Thank you. So, quick brief overview about myself. I'm Zinnia Bookwala, an interior designer and a registered interior designer with ARIDO. I come from India and I've studied both in Dubai and India, and have worked in Muscat and India before moving to Canada in 2018. I have around 14 years of experience till date, seven of which is overseas and seven of them in Canada. I currently am a workplace consultant with Abbass. I am also a newcomer advocate. I run my own newcomer organization as well called Networking Group for Newcomers in Interior in Canada, as well as a group for interior designers. So I'll quickly take you through some initial steps that I took when I moved to Canada. So even before arriving to Canada, I networked and connected with industry professionals. I learned about licensing, contacted ARIDO, and kind of got to know about the ICRS system, which we'll talk about a little later. I also connected with local professionals and companies in Canada and, made use of all the pre-arrival services that are available through the government of Canada. So I did take all these steps even prior to coming to Canada. And my initial days, unfortunately, at 7 years ago, there were not a lot of mentors in the field of interior designing. And you guys are lucky that we have a lot of mentors and institutes like SPAN and other professionals who are willing to now mentor and offer their services. So I had to rely on internet and to understand what needs to be done, how do I approach my job search, be it how to tailor my resumes, how to answer interview questions. And it kind of was an iterative process. So I found my first job through LinkedIn, and it was through the very referral that I had connected even before moving to Canada that helped me land this job. So, I can't stress enough on how referrals and how networking matters. I joined a boutique design firm which had a really strong work culture and a family culture. And I gained valuable experiences out there, which helped me complete my ICRS as well as my NCIDQ through their support. Going forward, I started mentoring with Triac and Pin after a few years in Canada as an interior designer. And, every day is a learning curve. You get to learn about the Canadian culture, about the industry jargons that they use, the terminologies they use here, which could be a little bit different than what you're used to back home. Also following industry newspapers, white papers, professional groups and events, and maintaining an active LinkedIn. This is something that I keep doing even today, and it's part of my career growth and, process, which I recommend all of you to do as well. Okay, so moving on to the core of our presentation, which is what is ARIDO and giving you a little bit of overview about ARIDO. So ARIDO is a regulatory body for interior designers in Ontario. So as some of you know and some don't, interior is a protected title in Canada. So you cannot call yourself an interior designer out here, even though you may have practiced back home, overseas, and had a job as an interior designer, even be it at a senior level or a junior level. It is only a registered ARIDO member can call themselves an interior designer. So for your past jobs, it is fine on LinkedIn and your resume to use that title because back home that title was valid and you were an interior designer. But I recommend using alternative titles like maybe an interior design professional, which is what I used when I moved here, on your LinkedIn headlines or in your resumes as a headline. So ARIDO offers a few mentorship categories. We won't go through all of them. The main ones I would like to stick with is the intern membership and the registered membership, which would be mostly applicable to you all. But just to give you a brief overview, an educator membership is typically for professors and people in the interior design educational world, and the membership offers them resources to help them in their profession. Similarly, for a student membership, it's usually for students who are currently enrolled in an ARIDO recognized interior design program, which would be called a CEDA accredited program. And it kind of helps students, access networking opportunities, resources, and begin their journey through their professional development. So I guess some of you might be students out here, not all. So this would be an important, process for you. Like you could register to be a student member with ARIDO, and ARIDO does through their students member offer services like, career express, portfolio evaluation. So those are some benefits. And then we have the intern membership that I'll talk about in detail in the next slide, and a registered membership. A registered member is typically when you have completed your process and you can call yourself an interior designer, much like myself, you become a registered member. So what's the pathway to becoming an registered member? So the first step would be your intern membership. So we have two options here. You are either a person who has a CEDA accredited education, and that would be typically somebody who has studied here with a CIDA accredited course, and you are immediately eligible to be an intern member. However, there are some courses even in Canada that do not have this accreditation, so you will not be able to be an intern member directly. So for those falling in that category, or for most of us on this call who have studied overseas, you would have a non-CEDA education, and basically you must complete a process called the ICRS that kind of proves your education experience to be kind of equivalent to the people who have studied here. And then once you clear that, you can become an intern member. So what is an ICRS? So an ICRS stands for Intern Competencies Review System. It is an alternative pathway into ARIDO's membership for applicants who have not graduated from a CEDA accredited program. So out here, you're required to provide a book of evidences or portfolio that will be a set competencies that ARIDO establishes, and you need to provide evidences against them relevant to your work experience or education. And you also need to prove a minimum education competencies to meet the intern membership. So this slide takes you a little bit more deeper into the process, but I have left a link below that takes you kind of through the website and the application in detail. So typically there are 33 competencies or core areas of design that they want to test you on. And the evidences are divided into direct and indirect, direct being your work experience and indirect being your education. So typically, it's advised that for each evidence, you provide a bit of work experience and a bit of education experience, one of each. But there could be times where you have only one of the two, which is fine. But for more, this is my advice, try to have for more competencies both of these evidences. There could be a time where you don't have evidences, a direct or an indirect evidence for a certain competency. Like I think in Canada specifically, One of the topics would be codes, because we did not have, as an interior designer at least, we did not have really building codes that we used to, kind of adhere to. It was more under the domain of an architect and engineer. So in those cases, you are allowed to maybe select a piece of evidence from the internet or a project. You need to give credit. Sorry. Yeah, you need to give credit that and mention that this is not your project, but you need to explain how you feel and you understand that this particular project kind of meets the competencies and your understanding of the competency. So, of course, if you have any more questions, you can contact me, and you can also contact a gentleman called Jose, whose contact I have also provided in the resources, who will be your best guide towards this process, and not only before starting, but even during the process. Finally, you submit this portfolio of evidences, and a set of interior designers, registered interior designers, review it, and they will make a decision. The entire process is, completely confidential. You do not share your name any place, nor do the designers know who they are evaluating. So it's a pretty unbiased process. So once you clear that and you do qualify in terms of your education experience, you also need to go through an interior design experience requirement. And this has shifted from the previous R-based to an evidence-based reporting. So when I completed my ICRS, I had to work under a registered interior designer for a set number of hours before I could give few of the exams of the NCIDQ. So this has now shifted more into task-based reporting, wherein you would be assigned a supervisor or mentor, and they would sign off against each task that you complete. Now, I do not know anything more than this because I haven't gone through this, but I have left you links below to read more about it. And there might be some of you who have already maybe started with the R-based process, and there is a date, I think Jan 1st, 2022, where they allowed you to complete it, and instead of going to the evidence-based reporting. So again, more information of it in the link that I provided. So now once you qualify for this, now you have two options. You have the NCIDQ, which was typically what we all have done till date, and then there's ARIDO. So NCIDQ is a not America-wide recognized licensing exam. Now you qualify after this to sit for these exams. And typically an education that is vetted by WES, which most of you might have completed as part of moving to Canada. If WES has qualified your education and called it an equivalent to a Canadian education, then that's all you need. You need to submit that to CIDQ, and you should be most probably be able to sit at least for one of the exams. And then you need to, of course, complete your evidence-based hours of working under a designer to sit for the exams. So there are 3 exams in total. Now, again, when I was completing this, ARIDO and CIDQ had a kind of a agreement wherein if I finish my ICRS and I completed it successfully, they vouched for me that I am qualified to sit for these exams. But this has now been terminated, this contract, and you would now need to approach CIDQ directly to find out whether you are eligible. Now, where this matters is when I gave my eligibility, I do not have a degree in design. I have a degree in finance and a diploma in design. So the ICR system through ARIDO really helped me because they could vouch for me. So I'm not sure what the process is now for the CIDQ, but I believe they should have an equivalent process to kind of review your competencies and allow you to sit for the exams. Having said that, I am a registered ARIDO member, but I do not have an NCIDQ certification number because they did tell me I have to go through your own evaluation process if I want that certificate number. So I'm sure there's something in place, but what it is, you'll have to find out from their website and, getting in touch with them. Now, ARIDO has now come up with a Canadian alternative to the NCIDQ exams, which will be Ontario-wide because ARIDO is just Ontario-wide. It's called ARIDO and it's still under process. They're still working out, fine-tuning the details. So what is happening now is currently whoever's a registered interior designer like me with ARIDO, I cannot still stamp drawings. I need to have a BCIN stamp for this, and which means I need to study, I need to give my BCIN exams, which I'll talk about a little later. But the future says that what I'm hearing is that ARIDO and OAA, that is the architect's registry body, will have a direct regulation model where designers who do complete the RIDA will be provided a stamp by the OAA for using to seal permits. So this will kind of replace the requirement of a BCIN in the near future. So before moving to some other alternatives, what I would like to say is this, as you say, this is a process. So you will start for it, but I kind of took 3 years to complete my licensing. That does not mean you cannot work in this industry. You will just not be able to work under the title interior designer. So you might want to look at job titles like project designer, maybe a coordinator, CAD technician, a kitchen designer, a junior designer, or simply a designer. As long as there's the title doesn't have interior designer, you should be able to work, because an expectation of an interior designer would be that you have completed this process towards giving these exams. So once you finish these exams and you pass, you would then be able to be qualified to be a registered interior designer with ARIDO, and you can use the title of an interior designer. Now, that is kind of the typical route that people take, but there are a few alternatives that you can do. BCIN is not an alternate, but more on a parallel path. What I realized when I gave my NCIDQ is because it's not America-wide, the codes that you learn are international building codes versus the Ontario building codes. So sometimes you realize that you still need to work and you still need to, gain some experiences to understand the nuances, because codes can be tricky. So a recommendation is to do the BCIN, because as of today, at least you need that to, sign off your, permits. But it also gives you really good information about the OBC and teaches you how to really navigate the codes. And so there are a couple of courses from George Brown and other institutes that offer BCIN. So that's one alternative. The other alternatives are home staging. So a lot of people get into home staging, and this might not be something that's prevalent back home, but home staging basically is it's a kind of a marketing tool to kind of design a house or stage a house so that it's kind of marketable or sellable to a prospective buyer. So it's temporary typically. And if you're working with a home stager and shadowing them, great. But if you are doing it by yourself, what it could entail is having a lot of inventory of furniture and having space to store it, which could be a cost. So those are some considerations that you might have to keep. But a lot of people get into home staging. And of course, a lot of home staging could also get turned into potential full interior design projects if the client wants to retain you. So RISA is the body that kind of undertakes this. And I think CSP is the, I think, licensing or something for it. Again, not sure about this a lot because I'm not into home staging, but I do have a link that I've given to follow more. Similarly, there's kitchens and baths. So kitchen and baths is again a whole new niche in itself. If you want to get into it, it's under the National Kitchen and Baths Association, NKBA, and CKBD is their certification. So that's another alternative I've seen a few people take and get into completely their niche line. And then WELL app and LEED are usually certifications that typically people do along with one or the following, which is basically an add-on. If you really want to get into sustainability and wellness and you really care about it, some jobs require that. So it's focusing totally on the wellness, sustainability, and green aspect of design. So as you see, there are many different approaches to designing the career of design in Canada. So I would say don't get overwhelmed, be open-minded, be enthusiastic, be ready to network and learn from people. you may not get an answer on day one. But what I've seen through experiences is that your career will kind of shape itself through your passions, through your efforts, the experiences, the people you meet, and just enjoy the journey. I'm a corporate interior designer, and I would say that I am that because that the kind of opportunities I got across the span of my career. I think 90% of my work has been into the corporate realm. So I kind of just develop a niche over there. So your experiences will shape where you go. So you do not need to have an answer right now, but these are just some information for you to start exploring these options. Um, and here I have a slide that kind of just talks about a little bit about the type of design firms that I have worked under and the kind of differences I've seen. Again, it's very important to know that not every firm would fit, a small firm would fit under this bucket, and not every big firm would fit under that bucket. But it's just something that generally you'd see across the board. That the small firms, what I've seen, are tend to be more close knit, more family oriented, really focus on your people because they can, because it's a small team. And they offer more personalized growth options. You can handle the best thing I think is that you can handle multiple projects right from start to end. So it kind of gives you a very great learning curve. And broad skill sets to kind of learn and leverage. And it's a really an open to question kind of a environment, a good culture. But on the flip side, because it's a smaller firm, you might be limited to smaller projects. You might be limited to your salaries. Might there might be a like a glass ceiling of sorts. Maybe you may not be able to get above a certain level just because that's the kind of a business they are. On the other side, a bigger firm kind of tends to be more structured and corporate. Your career goals and all might be a little bit more. It may be flexible, or it might be just tied into the company culture and their kind of systems. You could be pigeonholed to a certain aspect of design, like only designing or only project management or only working drawing development. But on the other hand, you get opportunities to work with great designers, with not to say they are not good designers in a smaller firm, but I mean designers who have worked on bigger projects, on more multinational projects. So you might that the scalability is a little different as compared to smaller projects. And so that's kind of the differences and nuances I have seen through my work. But one really take I would really like to focus on is the toxic environment. So it's really important to ask this question. It's not just one of the school trendy questions to ask, but I feel it's important before you get into the work. You understand what kind of culture do they have? Do they have a good working culture? How do they treat their employees? What are your value systems? Because this can kind of make and break you of sorts. And that's something that you need to figure out. You might even decide that even though this is a culture and you might not be something aligned to it, but you still want to get into it because you want to gain experience. And that's totally fine. But just make an informed decision. Go with, understanding where you're going so that you can prepare yourself and you can, charter your course accordingly. Um, and then here are some job search strategies. I'll just go over it quickly. Lulu, are we good with time? Yeah, I think we are good. Um,
We're good.
we
So
are good. Great. So yeah, so the first job search strategy is, of course, the first thing you start with is having a good LinkedIn profile. And these are some checklist of things that you can do. Have a good professional profile, photo, headshot. And I know many are not comfortable sharing a picture, which in my personal opinion is okay, but I would recommend why not have a logo or a branding. If you can see, I have a logo on my, I don't know if it's at the left or right for you. That's kind of my logo, and I kind of use it across the board. It kind of is a branding opportunity for you, and you can just leverage on it. Likewise, with a cover image, have a compelling cover image that reflects your industry, your personal brand, what you have done, what you're looking for. So that because we are in a design field and we love graphics, we love visuals, right? So that's something that we can really reinforce yourself and your profile to somebody. Next is an effective headline. Always have a headline and let it reflect your expertise or your roles clearly. A detailed about section, tell your story, showcase your strengths, tailor it to your goals, and really the about section is really important. And using AI research tools. So there's ChatGPT and various other research tools. Like I mentioned, I didn't have this when I started. So I used to use the internet. So, really analyze the job descriptions, the profiles of people who you like in the profession, who you admire, who you aspire to be, read how their profile reads, read the job descriptions, and that kind of teaches you the terminology, the jargons that are used here, the technical language used here. Many times what I've seen is you do the same thing back home than you do over here, but people don't understand that because they are used to, you conversing in a different style. They use a different, very, very basic example. We used to call potlights spotlights back home. They may not get that nuance out here. So it's really our responsibility to educate ourselves and understanding what is the terminology used here, and kind of tweak your resumes and your portfolios to speak the language that they talk. And it's kind of a good opportunity for you as well as a starting point to use in interviews, start embedding their language and tone. And then simply have a complete LinkedIn profile, like every part of your LinkedIn profile, the volunteering section, be it your, of course, I talked about headlines, about section, the job description, skills. Don't leave anything kind of uncapitalized. Link Consider LinkedIn like your real estate, like something which you need to leverage and make the most out of, because that's like the first glance somebody has into your profile even before meeting you. So you want it to reflect the best that it can about yourself. So some things that people that may not know and some do know is that LinkedIn goes beyond the job search. Think of it again, like I mentioned, your personal brand. You need to set some manageable goals. And this can be a very overwhelming task. People, I guess, must have already told you, make new connections, follow companies. You can even follow hashtags on this on LinkedIn, which is very important because that will personalize your search results. Send outreach messages, cold calling to people, engaging actively, like through likes, shares, sharing relevant content and commenting on stories. But this could get a little bit overwhelming. So my recommendation is you set your daily and weekly targets, and that's up to you. It could be more than somebody else, it could be less than somebody else, but set it up and follow it and, kind of commit yourself to it. And you'll see over time that initially when you're trying to find new connections and companies, you're finding them, you're really searching them. But once you make those connections, you have to understand, you then get an understanding of the LinkedIn algorithm, and it then works for you. It will then recommend people to you. It will recommend companies for you to follow. It will recommend things for you to look at. Your feed will now be much more tailored to interior designer in Canada. It may already be a good, your feed might already be great right now, but it might be more linked into your other country where you were working, where before moving to Canada. So now it's trying to shift that algorithm. And then we'll talk about coffee chats a little later, but this is a good tool to start, cold calling people, sending outreach messages and asking for a quick coffee chat with people. And through this all, I recommend that you be authentic, keep your interactions real, respectful, keep in mind people's time, the effort that they take to connect with you, and be respectful of it. And, people really respond to genuine curiosity and interest. So be authentic. And then level up your networking. Now, networking, of course, it's something which you all have heard of. Sometimes we cringe about it. A lot of us are introverts. I have been an introvert myself, and it does turn ambivert. But the beauty of networking is at least online networking is you do not need to be in person, right? You do not need to have some face-to-face initial conversations. So it's a great way for you to break ice. But you can go beyond LinkedIn. You can go and connect with your social circles, with your communities, your religious places, your casual spaces too. So do not leave any opportunity unturned, I would say. When you make friends, when you meet people in their communities, let them know what you're looking for. Let them know your experiences, the good, bad, the ugly. Be open to listening to their advice, their recommendations. Many of them, because we are newcomers or we are immigrants, we may have a lot of network who are immigrants themselves, and they can share much more personalized, tailored, experiences to you because they went through the same as against being a Canadian born resident. um, and then think about building relationships for the long term, not just the immediate gain. So you're not really looking for only the short term gain here. And of course, that's kind of what we want. The bottom line is we want a job. But believe me, there are times when I have got a job down the road with a network connection that I made 7 years down the road, previously. So you never know when a connection might help you, and they may not even help you for a job. They might help you in settling in this new country, understanding child support, understanding the best daycare for your child. So, and we feel that, job search and this is different, but one will affect the other. If you're not well settled in your job, it will affect your personal life. And if you are not settled well in this new country, it's going to affect your job search. So it's kind of integrated, and you need to look at a holistic networking approach, I would say. And always give generously. When you can offer something, it'll come back to you in unexpected ways. So at times we feel like we are a newcomer, we are new immigrants, or we are new to this country. What do we have to offer? But you never know what you have to offer. You may offer newcomers, and like I started my own WhatsApp group of newcomers because I had something to share. And then in return, they had something to share. We were in entire process of how to get a Canadian, how to become from a PR to a citizen, how do you surrender your passports, all those processes. We were supporting each other and helping each other out because we went through the same combined experiences. So you never know what you have to offer. So just be willing to give, and you will get in return as well. That's just how the universe works. And surround yourself with learners and givers. It's always better to be in a room full of people who are wiser than you, than you being the wiser of the in the room, because you'll get to learn much more. And I'll be honest, the job market is difficult. It has been much more difficult than when I moved to Canada. So yes, the need of the hour is that you will have to network, you will have to be consistent, you will have to be persistent, you will have to knock 100 doors, and not all of that will, be fruitful. Maybe out of the 100 doors you knock, maybe one might answer, and that might be the key to your, entry into something in Canada. But unfortunately, that's what it is. So, stay hopeful, stay persistent, and just enjoy the process, and make a support group. Even people on this call, if you all are new immigrants or you are newcomers, you have the some kind of commonality, connect with each other, share what worked for you, what didn't work for you. You learn a lot through this osmosis process, and enjoy this journey. It begins with you. Um, and here are just some extra miles that you can go in your, job search and in your industry. Even after getting a job, you can, I touched upon a few. You can read white papers in the industry. Herman Miller, Technion, Leesmans have a lot of reports. These are very workplace centric because I am a commercial corporate interior designer, but I'm sure there are lots similar resources for residential, retail, hospitality. Follow Canadian publications. Of course, stay in touch with regulations like ARIDO, NCIDQ, BCIN, ADA. Attend industry events and trade shows. You get a lot to interact with people, get to know the latest trends and new things in the industry, and you can even network and group together and meet each other over there. Again, follow hashtags and LinkedIn groups. I see a lot now, a lot of design firms, especially the smaller firms, are going on Instagram. They are actively involved on Instagram, sharing their personal achievements, stories, milestones, celebrating their staff stories and milestones. So follow them, engage with them on every social media that you can, because you might find a job search, job search inquiry on even Instagram. So I've seen that a lot in recent years. And Toronto Public Library has a lot of free access to Linda. So you can take a lot of short courses over there. You might get LinkedIn Premium for free. And I'm talking a lot about free things over here because I know that it's difficult when you come to a new country to, pay for these. Some of these events are really expensive. So if you search, there are a lot of things that are available free of course. You just need to, you know, do your research. And I think the last point I've already touched upon. Finally, a coffee chat. So coffee chat is something very important. It's also called an informational chat out here. And is that something that I learned over here? I didn't know this terminology, at least back home. So it's basically a casual, informal conversation. It could be a virtual and in person. And it's with somebody who's a professional whose role you kind of aspire to be, a hiring manager. But typically, actually, it's somebody in your own professional circles, close to the kind of title that you aspire to be. And it's very important to know it's not a job interview and it's not a job asking conversation. The bottom line, that's what we are looking for, but it's more about building connections and gaining the insights. I also recommend connect with, immigrants who are now successful in Canada because you learn a lot, like I said, from their transition story. So it's about understanding what they do in their daily activity. What is an interior designer, like me, say example, what does a corporate interior designer do on a day-to-day basis? And that will help you understand how is it different from what you do back home? What is the similarities of what you do in back in home? How do you bridge the gaps? It kind of makes you question these things and try to find answers to these questions. And this is the best way for you to get better in your interviews, because the more you talk with people in the industry who are working, you understand their day-to-day lives. I am very open to mentorship. I offer literally what I do every day, and people understand things like what's a site instruction, what's a construction document, and they have done this in the past. They may not have done it in a as formalized way as here, or they might have called it a different thing. It's all about asking sometimes the right question to get informed. So this is a really important tool that people use. And again, in the past, people have been a bit more open to coffee chats. And this, unfortunately, the market is such that there are a lot of people who get approached for this. So there might be times when somebody doesn't answer you, somebody is not that active on LinkedIn. I would just say brush that past you. Don't, focus too much on that, but try to find out people who are more on LinkedIn, who are more engaged, who are ready to help you get your clues and nuances on who are more socially, active and available. And just have a conversation, build a relationship. And down the road, sometimes they might be the one who will get you the job because they might connect you with the right person who is actually looking for it, that position, or something might come up in your own company. But they need to know you, they need to understand you, your dedication, your commitment in order to be able to be comfortable to recommend you for the role, right? So this is something that's really important and something I recommend you all to try.
We have 10 minutes, Zinnia.
Great.
So
So
I think
I'm done.
we're on track. And
Great, great. That's great. So yeah, and that's it. These are some of the resources for all the talk conversations that we talked about, some links to it. I'm sure there are more, but these I think are great building blocks for you. And I'll just leave the floor now for question answers. I might have gone too fast on some things, or you need certain clarity. Feel free to ask me, and I'll try to help you all.
let's try and use the raise the hand button so that we can ask the questions. And I have my first question.
Oh, great.
What are the exams? Are they like, how many exams are they?
So the NCIDQ exam, there are three exams. One is called the IDFX, which is a foundation course. And typically anybody, once you qualify for that, the education, when they know that you are qualified, like your international education and experience is equivalent, and you can sit for the exams, you can immediately give that exams. But the other two exams are the IDPX, which is the practical professional exam, and the practicum, which is more of a case study kind of an exam. Those two require, I think, it used to be R-based for me, but more of experience-based, task-based completion that you need to do under a designer registered designer or supervisor for you to sit for those exams. So you finish these 3 exams and then you pass it, and then you'll get your NCIDQ exam. As for the RIDA, which is the alternate Canadian, it's still developing. So I don't have information on that, and I don't know how many exams that would be or what would the details be for that.
Okay, we have Hardeep. Hardeep, go ahead.
Hi, I have question.
Yes.
Like if like I did architecture technology diploma 3 year, like in 2020. Then I did until since then I'm doing working as interior architecture design drafter and like kind of designer, but I don't want to put designer as you said. My question is, should I do like a 4 year degree from Sheridan or TMU for interior designer, or there is other path? But currently, I'm thinking to do degree because I want to become professor. So, what is pathway if I take a 4 year degree?
So,
Bachelor's.
so of course, the final call would be yours, and there might be some different requirements for somebody who wants to become a professor or in this field. Yes, you could do a 4 year degree course, but I would definitely recommend to look into a CIDA accredited course, because you might end up doing something which may not be recognized, and then it's the same process again for you. So that would be a good starting point, and there are a few institutes and colleges, of course, here that offer those courses. So that would be a good route. But if you should approach ARIDO, and you should approach maybe CIDQ as well, to just show what you have done already and to check if you are qualified already. So again, what is your education?
Like in India, I did a civil engineering diploma 3 year.
Okay.
And here I did the architecture technology 3 year diploma.
Okay.
And after 3 year diploma, from 2022 until now, like almost 5 years, I work as an interior and architecture design drafter, designer, estimator.
Okay, so it's possible. It's possible that you could kind of not do the CID accredited course. You may not need to, because you might have, through the experiences in Canada, be able to give direct evidences, and through your diploma and the civil, even though it's civil, there are architects and designers. There are a lot of architects who want to transition into interior designing. So one of the kind of ARIDO's motto, or kind of reasoning behind ICRS, is also for people from the AEC industry who are not in traditional interior designers, but who want to transition, because you have overlapping experiences that can work across industries. So that's definitely something that you should reach out to ARIDO to ask them whether whatever you have, does that qualify you to give an ICRS? And perhaps if you can do that, you might even be able to avoid a 4 year degree.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Hardeep, if you also, there's I don't know if you know about the architectural technologist path, that also gives you a license if you want to pursue that.
Like I'm already like architecture technologist because I did a 3 year architecture technology program, but I don't know what after that I can do.
Yeah, so they have if you go on the OAA website, they have accredited licensed technologist program, which gives you a stamp to design up to 4-story buildings, like more scope than a regular technologist would. So you might benefit looking into that as well. I can see the pros and cons for each interior or for technologist, like what you can do with this and what you can do with that.
Sure, thank you. I will reach out to you if you can provide me more detail.
No worries. Yep, sure.
Thank you.
We have a question from Sharif. Is architects need the interior design license as well? No, as an architect, you either go for the architect's license or you go for the interior design license. You don't have to do both unless you want to.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can choose. Yeah.
You can choose, yeah.
Each has their own requirements, like I'm sure OA has their own requirements of licensing and all, and you can choose which you prefer based on your experience.
Yeah.
What I mean is, sorry for interruption. What I mean is, if you have a license from OAA as an architect, and I want to practice interior design, is it enough to have the architect license to do so, or we have to have both?
I think it's possible because currently anybody with an OAA stamp can submit interior design drawings for permits. So there are a lot of architects who are kind of work as a designer. I do think that's possible, but I would definitely reach out to ARIDO as well to confirm this.
All right, thank you.
And so, Zinnia, when you say architects do design drawings and stamp them, like, is there a requirement for interior designers to stamp drawings?
So there are two things.
I mean, an architect can do interior design and just stamp them as an architect, and they're called interior design drawings. Is there like a need for separate drawings for interior design?
So there are, like, in a traditional concept, interior designing drawings are everything. I think back home we used to call it post plaster, but here anything outside the building shell, if you're working on an interior designer would take care of that. But architects over here, typically when we approach architects, we typically approach them for more about understanding separation, understanding fire safety and those kind of things when you break walls, and trying to see how that affects code. And architects typically only handle that aspect of it, but there are architects who work in a interior design firm who then work as an interior designer. So you do not need an OAA stamp unless you want to submit drawings to the city for permit. And an interior designer will need that stamp, or they will need actually a BCIN stamp to submit drawings. So it's your choice. So I work under a firm. I don't have a BCIN. I can't stamp drawings, but I'm working under a firm who has an OAA licensed designer or who has somebody with a BCIN. So they do the stamping of drawings. But yes, once you getting into more independent profession and doing it, and you want that that autonomy of stamping your drawings, yes. And the other thing is also the whole layer to this is also a liability, professional liability. If you do not have the knowledge and you want overseeing a project as a designer, and if you don't have a confidence, you might be responsible for any errors there. So that's why you need to know what your what you can work under that license, if you're confident to be able to submit drawings and all. So those are the two aspects. I hope I kind of answered that question.
Yeah, so we have a question saying, can I work as a recognized interior designer if I have the Ontario Building Code certification? And I think we're confusing designer with interior designer. Like, you can design anything if you have knowledge of code and if you have a stamp and if it's being submitted to the city for a permit and if it has anything to do with life safety issues. But interior work is really like the material. If you're looking at material and colors and shapes, then that doesn't need a stamp. Am I correct, Zinnia?
So I would say that those, what we would call the latter, which you talk about, only if you're only dealing with finishes and materials and all, you would call yourself an interior decorator. And then that doesn't have anything to do with codes because you're not affecting life safety. But as soon as you touch a wall, as soon as you touch a door and a plumbing, then you get into the interior designing element, because you anytime you open a door, you're changing the travel distances to exits for fire, and life safety comes into, and then you have to be an interior designer to do this. There is a confusion at time, yes, which is the BCIN, because you, like the question here is, if you have an OBC certification, which I believe you must have given a BCIN exam, you have to have a BCIN exam and a BCIN number, and then maybe you can stamp drawings. But can you call yourself an interior designer? I still think you need to be an ARIDO member for that. And that's just how because they are the regulatory body in Ontario.
Correct.
And it's a good question to ask ARIDO as well, because there is always that overlap between BCIN and ARIDO. That's a common question that people have and get confused, and it's phasing out. So what does that mean?
But maybe the short answer is yes, right? they can do that, just not call themselves an interior designer.
Yes, that's what I think. That's what I believe is it. That
Yeah.
they can work and they can stamp drawings, but they can't call themselves an interior designer.
So do OBC exams replace the need to register with ARIDO for interior designers? No, it does not.
That's not it. Yeah. As on their website, they don't say that. They do not say that if you have a BCIN, you can call yourself an interior designer.
Yeah. Which courses do you recommend to study for starting the interior design career?
So there are a lot of courses, It depends if you're just studying for knowledge, then I think the sky's the limit. And of course, you need to ask students at pass out what works. But if it's towards licensing, then you need to look into institutes that offer the CIDA accreditation. This is something that can differ you to other people because I haven't studied in Canada. I am a true example of somebody who used my past experience and education and transitioned into Canada. So I have never been a student in Canada. So that's something that I can't personally decide. I've never even been in a college to even know what their courses offer. But I do know a lot of people who have done the courses or who are going through the courses. So definitely, if you reach out to me, I can try to connect you to them and to figure out what courses might work. But it's a lot of research work that you will have to do to figure out that. And what would work best for you?
We have almost like 1 minute left. Anybody has any question? And again, you can always email me or Zinnia if you have any questions, and we can try and follow up with you guys. So no worries. And I will also email the PDF of the slides to the same email like we had on file for you. Yep, seems like nobody has any more questions. Thank you, Zinnia, for this webinar. It was very insightful, I must say. And thank you, everybody, for coming. And please follow our page for more events and follow Zinnia's page for more of her advice. And we look forward to collaborating with you, Zinnia. And we both share the same passion to help and to give others advice. So kudos to you. And we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Yeah,
bye. Oh, where can we get your email?
My email? I think I haven't given that, but maybe
Is it in your slides? I wonder.
I think I missed it, but my LinkedIn is there.
I can add it for you.
Yes,
no worries. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care. Bye. And also join on LinkedIn. We should join Zinnia and myself on LinkedIn, and that's how we stay connected.
Yes.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.